Hello and welcome to another episode of Thick Slices and Deep Cuts. On this evening's episode, I am going to be, I guess I'll be ranking the albums. I'll be going through the discography of Swedish atmospheric progressive metalers, SOEN. SOEN, very, I think they do well, but they also seem underrated and somewhat overlooked. Formed, I'm not sure exactly when, but I think by 2010 they were up and running with Martin Lopez, the former drummer of Opeth, and Joel Ekaloff, the bald singer. He's kind of the face of the band. He's the voice of the band. He's the face of the band. And in their first incarnation, they had Steve DiGiorgio on bass. And since then, they've gone through a few different lineup changes over the years. But incredibly difficult to rank these 5 albums. They got 5 albums, and so I did an episode on the band Coroner, and I couldn't rank the albums. They were all great. This is the same thing. So I think I will go through them chronologically. I'll give them my ranking, but that ranking has changed completely every day. It just keeps changing to the point where I'm like, clearly, these are 5 albums, all of high quality. Excellent vocals, excellent drumming by Martin Lopez. And my hope is they're in the States, and so are Catatonia, fellow Swedish band, and they are going to cross paths for 2 shows in Texas. One is in Austin, and one is in Dallas or Fort Worth or something like that. But I have tickets, and I'm hopeful to see them on Tuesday, December 6th in Austin, Texas, with some heavy band from Germany called The Ocean, which I have their last album. They're very strange. Some other opening acts too, but looking forward to that. I'm hoping to. That's going to be a great show. It's going to be a great show. And it's in Austin, Texas. I've never been. I hear that's a very cool city. I had never really been to Nashville either. Went there, and that was a fun time watching Opeth and Mastodon. So I'm hoping, for a different experience, but for something similar to that this time around. So anyway, let's get started. 5 albums. Incredibly difficult to rank, so I'm going to go chronologically and give it a number, but it's just really, this show is just to praise the band. It's just a chance to bring a little bit more light to an excellent band that I've probably been digging now for about 3 years, but have known about them since the beginning. When they released this album in 2012 called Cognitive, and what a cool, interesting album cover that is. This lineup of the band, obviously Joel Ekaloff on vocals and Martin Lopez on drums. Steve DiGiorgio, his one appearance with the band is on this album. And I hope I don't butcher his name, but Joachim Platsbarstis is your guitarist. And he plays a 7-string Ibanez Universe. It's the same exact one I have. It's black and silver. It's got the pyramid inlays. But this album is a really good start. It's not like a starting point. They hit the ground with something legitimate here. David Bottrill, who does a lot of Tool stuff and has done many other bands, he is the producer here, or at least the engineer. Man, what can I say? When I started reviewing for this, I thought, well, this will probably be the last place album because it's just a starting point. The production maybe not quite as great, but the production is really good. The song Fractions is great. There's a video for Delenda that has Steve DiGiorgio in it. That's a really good song. Last Light is really good. Oscillation is pretty technical and heavy. Canvas is maybe my favorite on here. If it weren't for the opening track we heard called Purpose. And I'm not saying Purpose is their best song, but the vocal melody that Joel did on those 2 choruses, the way he constructed that vocal melody, for me, it just takes the cake on that song. To this day, they still play the final track, Sabia. They still play that one live. So they don't really touch on this album very much anymore, but they do play that song. And I'm going to rank this 4th of 5. I think it's a great album. I think it's just another one with its own vibe, its own style. It's tight, but it's still got some of that, it's got a lot of atmosphere. It's still got a little bit of that grit that I like. You know, his vocals are great. They're not like perfectly auto-tuned, which I like. I like the human element. So, and as I listen to this, I really, I can get into these. You kind of, somebody said that you kind of get lost in the atmosphere of these songs, and you totally do on every single album. So there's a vibe on all these albums, and it just, every one of them. They're much like Catatonia, who I'm going to go see them with, and even Opeth. And even Tool to a lesser extent, they don't really make songs that are bad. Everything sounds either good or great. It's either got that magic that just makes you want to play the track over and over again, or it still just sounds pleasant, you know. So everything on here is solid. I'm ranking it 4th today, but in reviewing for this might have been my second favorite listen, just because I really just got more and more into it. And then a lot of these tracks just clicked with me more. Like that song Purpose that we opened with, that was a deep cut that I just, for some reason, it never clicked with me on how great that is. So this is their debut from 2012, the one with Steve DiGiorgio on bass, a solid effort right here. And that is Cognitive, 2012. And their follow-up to this in 2014 is called Tellurian, and the album cover is bizarre. It's a rhinoceros. There's a sailboat. There's a rhinoceros at the dinner table, and he's eating little human people, like they're appetizers or something. And they're hanging on the wall here. Not sure why that's the album cover, but it's a great album. We're listening to, if I can pronounce it, Huraman. And the only lineup change here is it Stefan Stenberg on bass now, but you still got Joachim on guitars here. And the track that got me into this album was this video for a song called The Words. Great song, great composition. That's on here. We're listening to Kuraman. There's a video also for Tabula Rasa. I'm butchering these titles, but it's great. And then Kuraman into The Words, into Pluton, into Caniscus, into NUI, into Void, and it finishes with The Others Fall. This is my, as of today, this is my number 1 album. There's just something about the vibe on here. It's not as polished as their newer albums in their slightly newer direction, which is more, you know, meticulous. It's got a heavy, whereas the first album had, definitely people were like, man, these guys sound like Tool, especially the vocalist. Well, this one has a little bit of that, but this definitely has an Opeth kind of vibe. Some of these songs come out ragingly heavy, like much like Opeth, like from all from the albums that Martin Lopez was on. But they all have these moments, where just these beautiful melodic moments, and then they just drift like in a cool atmosphere, like a real proggy kind of way, where you just kind of get lost in a cool pattern, and maybe the time signatures are not quite 4/4 all the time. Just a really cool vibe on this one, and I feel like this one, these two are kind of connected. This one's they're all different, but these are maybe kind of connected, maybe because the guitar player is the same on both. But I did read that people describe them as somewhere between Tool meets Opeth. The fact that they're touring with Catatonia, at least for a couple of gigs, doesn't surprise me. This is more of the Tool album. This is more of the Opeth-y album. But man, what a solid album here. Coming into this, I thought this would be like my number 3. And here we are right now. I thought this was going to be my dead last number 5, but I really enjoy it. It's my 4. I thought this would be my number 3. It's my number 1. Because I was just being honest. I was just listing the songs that I really like from all the albums, and I'm like, well, I guess that means this is number 1. Because from Kuraman all the way through Void, 6 in a row of just like home run tracks. So there you go, their second album from 2014, Tellurian, my number one. And so then you move ahead to 2017. So you had their debut in 2012. 2014, they switch bass player. Steve DiGiorgio leaves. Probably his commitments to Testament kicking in. So in 2017, and we're hearing a song Jinn from it, Lycaea. I don't have the original. There's their original logo, and here's their new logo. I never heard the original Lycaea from 2017. I only had the revisited version from 2018, which adds a track called Vitriol, which might be my favorite track on the album, but it wasn't on the original version. This also has some a couple of live recordings on here too. This was recorded all analog, so if it sounds a little, I call it the brown sound, that golden sound, everything's analog, so it does not have that super sharp, meticulous, computerized, mechanical thing. It's definitely very analog, very organic sounding. And this song, Jinn's got to be one of their best songs. I hope they play it live. It opens with Sectarian, which is a great opener. They always have good openers. Horizon's solid. They still play Lucidity, Opal, Jinn, Sister's good, Stray is good. Paragon's kind of a mellower one, but still weighty. Vitriol, and then it ends with God's Acre, which is a really good long one. Great album. I thought this was going to be like my 1 or 2. It's my 3 today. But again, its own vibe, its own magic on here. You're not going to hear another SOEN album that sounds quite like this one. And I'm just a massive fan of it. If they have a shirt at the concert, and even if they don't, I'm sure they have a shirt of this. This is the shirt to get with that album cover. I think it's called Dogs in the Manger or Wolves in the Manger or something. So there you go. This is their third album from 2017. Again, you have a lineup change. I forget the guitar player's name, but you switch. And they go from a 4-piece to a 5-piece. So you add Lars Allen, who's a second guitar player and keyboard player, and he's still in the band to this day. And it's produced by the guitar player who was only on this album, Marcus Gidel. So they've become a 5-piece at this point. Also, David Botrill did the mixing and engineering on this one too. On this one, now you're getting David Castillo, who's pretty well known in the progressive metal circles, working up there at like Fascination Street Studios with Jens Boger and those guys. He comes in and helps engineer a mix. I don't know how much he did on the original one, but I think when they did the revisited, I think they may have remixed these songs a little bit. I think he had something to do with that. So there you go, their third album from 2017, Lycaea. So you're moving ahead now to 2019, and their fourth album called Lotus. It's a nice fold out there. Opens up more. You got the eye in the pyramid. At one point, this was my number one because it's got their more modern style that they're now into. In every song on here. I mean, Opponent is another great strong opener, just like Sectarian, just like Tabula Rasa, just like Fractions. Lascivious is a catchy one. I think they play that one live. Martyrs is heavy. Lotus, the song is cool. They got like a Pink Floyd thing going on now. Covenant. Here's a hint. We're going to hear Covenant here in about 30 seconds. Great song. Penance, kind of more chill. Rivers, I guess it's chill, but it's got this really great vocal melody. And that's another thing I love about this band. Not only do they have the heavy and the proggy, they have all that atmosphere. It's authentic, but their vocalist, it's catchy. It's catchy. You know, their vocalist is great. Rival is a good heavy one, and it ends with Lunacy, which is a really cool, catchy one. Yeah, here's Covenant from this album. So this is their more modern sounding album, engineered by Jens Boger, or by David Castillo, but mixed by Jens Bogren here. So you get a much more modern sound, whereas this is very 70s analog, as it was recorded with that kind of gear. The change here was we're going to go old analog, and then they go more modern here. But I still like it. It's still got just a little bit of grit, something in there. That human element's still going on here. This is my number 2 today, and I always found that these two are kind of connected, and I always thought that, and this is what I kind of cut my teeth on for a long time, were these middle 3, because this kind of represents the early stuff. This is a transitional analog album, and this represents their kind of new direction. So you get it all somewhat with these middle 3 for all different types of reasons. But yeah, I think they play this album pretty heavily still, along with the one I'll be talking about here shortly. They'll touch on this album, and you might get one track from those first 2 albums. Ironically, I picked this as my number 1, but I don't think they play anything from it live at this stage. So yeah, this is their 4th album from 2019. I pretty much got these 2 on the same day. I'd known about the band. It seemed like a band I would like. Steve DiGiorgio was in there. So I bought these 2 pretty much. When this came out, I got these 2. Got this one shortly thereafter, and it's no secret, it's no surprise these would be my top 3. It's the one I have the longest connection with. That said, I really enjoyed the debut. So that would be my number 2, but again, all these albums are excellent. And they all bring their own qualities too. So there you go. This is Lotus from 2019, starting their new trajectory. Oh, and also lineup change here. Marcus Jadell, who was on just Lycaea, he leaves and is replaced by the Canadian Cody Ford on guitar. And you're a 5-piece here still, so Lars Alland is your second guitarist and also your keyboardist. So real handy guy to have in the band. But Cody Ford is an incredible guitar player. He's not a shredder, but he's like a really heavy technical David Gilmour type. He's always playing these incredible, comfortably numb type solos. So he's a great addition to the band. I'm trying to think if they've had a lineup change since here. I think this is, I think they're locked in here. No, this is the last album with Stefan Stenberg on bass. That's what it is. They do have one lineup change on the new one. So there you go. Okay, and that leads us to their most recent proper studio release. They've done some other things here, but great cover. This came out in 2021, Imperial. I'll have to look up the bass player's name, but they do have a new bass player to go with, what's his name? Whew. Alexei Kobel. He's the one with the dreads here. So you got the bass player Alexei, you've got Cody Ford from Canada on guitars, you've got Lars Alland on whatever they need, guitars, keys. The great Martin Lopez, formerly of Opeth, founding member, and the other founding member, great singer Joel Ekaloff. The voice of the band, the face of the band. I enjoy this album. I cannot believe something has to come in at 5th of 5. And I think that the band would tell you this is their strongest effort, and this would be their number 1, and they certainly play this one heavily. And the next song is Illusion. It's a great song, great solo, great song. But when I was putting together like my top 10 songs, that was the only top 10 song from this album. Everything else had like 2, or 2, and then Tellurian had like 4 or something like that. I think I was kicking some of those songs up the list, but it clearly had the most. But I mean, it's just, this is their meticulous album. It's metallic, it's meticulous, it's perfect, it's precision, which is great. But there's just one thing about that kind of meticulous. When it gets too meticulous and you lose all that grit, I like that human element. I thought it was perfect here because it was still modern and it was pretty meticulous, but it was still organic enough. And this one is just completely perfected. There's not much organic on here. Lou Marion comes out ripping. All these songs pretty much are heavy, but they all have those catchy moments. They're also, this is concise. 8 songs, 42 minutes. A shorter album, more concise. They get to the point. These are more traditional song structres, which is great, but I liked it when they weren't doing traditional song structures. Like on here, you didn't know where they were going to go. Especially on here. This is probably why this is my number 1. You didn't know where the song was going to end up. Whereas on here, you pretty much have an idea where these songs are headed. They're pretty traditional song structures. But here's Illusion from this album. Deceiver. Monarch is heavy. This is the first track 4. This is the first mellower track. Antagonist is aggressive. Modesty, Dissident is heavy. And then it finishes with Fortune, which is another... I don't know if they're quiet or chill. They're just like these Pink Floyd type tracks. Great guitar work by Cody Ford, the David Gilmour. So this is my number 5, but it's a great album and I enjoy it. That's why I went through these chronologically, because I don't think the ranking matters. I think these all are just of great quality. And this band, they don't get talked about enough. And also, today, this is Friday, November 18th. I don't know when I'll post this, but this arrived in the mail today on the day of its release. Atlantis. So this is them live in a studio somewhere in Stockholm with a small orchestra. So it's all live with an orchestra in the studio. And they play Antagonist from Imperial, Lunacy from Lotus, Monarch from Imperial, Trials is a brand new song, River from Lotus, Jinn from Lycaea, Illusion from Imperial, Modesty from Imperial, Lucidity from Lycaea, Savia from Cognitive, Fortune from Imperial, Snuff, which is a Slipknot cover, Lascivious from Lotus, and Lotus the song from Lotus. Nothing from Tellurian, but that's okay. Super catchy. So this is great. Other than listening to it, the audio, I haven't really dug into this just yet because it just arrived this afternoon. So I wouldn't count this as a proper release as far as ranking, because it's live and they're doing, orchestrated live versions of these songs, but so cool. And then last but not least, this is for Record Store Day, I don't know what year, 2020 maybe? They put out the Undiscovered Lotus. The Lotus recording sessions must have been incredible because they have 3 songs and about 20 minutes of music that did not make it on the album. Great solo. I'll try and talk a little more quietly. So you've got 3 songs, EMDR, and I forget the name of the other one. And then you flip it over to side 2 and you have these live tracks from Lycaea, Sectarian, Jinn, which we heard earlier, and Lucidity, all recorded live. So what a cool little EP thing. You've got 20 minutes, and there's that Lotus, Lycaea. So EMDR, Thurifer, and Virtue. Almost 20 minutes of new tunes left over from the Lotus sessions, which are great. They're as good as the stuff on Lotus, especially EMDR. And again, Lycaea. I think I had Sectarian and on the Revisited you get the bonus track Vitriol, and you get Sectarian live in Lisbon. Same one, and you get Lucidity live in Rome. But what you get here also is you get Gin live in Lisbon as well. So that's cool. Yeah, mixed by David Castillo on that one. So just very, very cool. And I think that's everything they have that's out. Like I said, I don't have a... I hope to get a concert shirt. I guess what I'm saying is I'm a big fan of SOEN. They got 5 proper albums. They've got this cool little EP of extras, you know, cutting room floor tracks, and then this just came out. So they've got a nice little legacy going to this point with these 5 classics: Cognitive, Tellurian, Lycaea, Lotus, Imperial, and now Atlantis, and also the Undiscovered Lotus sessions and some live stuff from Lycaea. Very cool. So there you go. That, I think, covers pretty much everything. I hope to, I have the tickets to go see them in Austin in 2.5 weeks from now. I'm sure it's going to be an awesome show with Catatonia and the Ocean. So that'll do it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.